Hey everybody, welcome back to Shoe and Show. Thanks for joining us for this week's episode. Really excited to kick off the new year with this guest of who is a legend, who's leading a legendary company. Now that it's interesting because sometimes that company is going into the wilderness literally, and the product they have to develop to make that happen is quite fascinating, difficult, tough, and also innovative. Their approach to product is innovative. Their approach to design of product is innovative. And so we want to unpackage some of that today, and also just some shoe stories and some fascinating tidbits that I think industry leaders will find really, really interesting and want to dig into. So Matt, who's the latest victim we got on the show?
Andy. So this is a true story. I was on a ski lift Saturday, just this past Saturday, first runs of the season, and it was freezing. And I looked down at my gloves. I had Mountain Hardwear gloves on, and I knew I had Columbia Sportswear pants on. And I thank God for the Columbia Sportswear company. In that very moment, as our ski lift was stopped and hung, as we were waiting for someone who had fallen, I guess. And so I'm very excited about our guest today, who's Tim Boyle, who is the chairman and the chief executive officer of the Columbia Sportswear Company. Tim, welcome to Shoe and Show. We're so glad that you're here. Thanks for spending some time with us today.
Well, thanks. It's great to be included with luminaries like yourselves, and it's always fun to talk about our business and the shoe business.
Yeah, well, let's dive right in. The genesis of this conversation is kind of a throwback to this iconic silhouette that you guys dropped back in the early 90s, 1993 to be exact. And Andy and I were in high school, just to age ourselves. But I will say, the Bugaboot was an iconic silhouette at that moment, and you've reissued it in 2025. Let's dive into the history of the Bugaboot. Who
Sure.
helped design it for you, and kind of why did you re-release it in 2025?
Well, it's an interesting story. As you know, Portland has a number of shoe companies.
Is that
today.
true?
Just a few.
Just a few. And this back in the early 90s, it didn't have as many, but it had one really big one, which was obviously Nike. So we had just really been quite successful for the last, for the prior 6-7 years making ski apparel. And one of the products, which was a home run for us, was the Bugaboot jacket. Just, really launched our company. And the Sorel Boot Company, that was a famous Canadian company. We didn't own it at the time. We do now, but they were following our salespeople around selling selling Sorel boots that matched the color of our Bugaboot jacket. Rob Strasser, who many in the shoe business know about, had just left Nike. So, we had mutual friends, and I said, "Can somebody get me an introduction to Rob? Because I'd like to find out if we should be thinking about doing some footwear." So, got an introduction, met with Rob and Peter and Jim Gorman, who were all striking out in the footwear business themselves. They had a little boutique company underneath one of the famous bridges in Portland in a ratty old, small space. So I went in and explained to them about the Sorel Boot Company and what they were doing. And I said, should we be in the footwear business? And they sort of scratched their head. And Rob said, I don't know, maybe, let me think about it. So about 2 weeks later, he called me and said, well, we have this consulting deal with Adidas, which ultimately ended up with Rob and Peter running the business. But anyway, at that time, they were running out of this little business. And so they said, we have this deal with Adidas that really precludes us from doing anything in this area. But the hell with it, you're a Portland guy, we'll do it. So Peter designed the shoe, which was basically a Sorel boot. There you go. That spent the night with an athletic shoe in a shoe box, and that's the what would end up happening, the Bugaboot. And so, I mean, it was a really sort of just lightning strike. Um, we we didn't have a name for the product because we were not in the footwear business prior, and there were a number of people who suggested, hey, maybe Mother Ducker might be a good name, but my mother said no, so we went with Bugaboot. So that's what happened. That launched that launched us in the business.
When you decided to do footwear, did anyone in the company say, "Are you serious about this?" Because obviously, apparel is so different than footwear. It's so the complexities are a little bit different. But was there anybody like holding back, or did everybody think like, "Yeah, we should allow somebody else to take credit for what we've been building"?
Yeah, I mean, the footwear business is different from the apparel business, without question. But we didn't know enough to know that it was different, so we just went in and did it.
Well, what made you decide to reissue the Bugaboot, Tim? Like, what was the thought process of bringing that back? Obviously, we've lost both your mother and Peter since that time. So
and Rob.
Walk us through that.
Well, it's interesting. One of my avocations, which I'm not very good at, I'm not very good at a lot of things, but I'm certainly not very good at playing golf. But I know the Jacobson brothers well, and Peter is the famous Portland professional golfer. And he was telling me about a trip that he had taken. He lives in Florida most of the year. And he had a visitor from Portland, the guy he'd gone to school with at Oregon, comes and they rented a boat. Well, it was Tinker Hatfield. And so they went out for a boat ride, and they came back to the dock, and there was 50 people waiting at the dock. And Peter said, these guys all want autographs from me. And it turned out that they all wanted Tinker's autograph, not Peter's. So it's sort of a light bulb went off to say, we've got a story with a famous footwear designer, and, maybe we should make some noise about it and tell people about it. So that was really why we decided to go ahead and reissue the boot. And, Peter's family, he's got 3 boys. 2 of them are living in Portland and are operating his old design business. So we sat down with those guys, and it was really fun I didn't know the boys very well. I knew Peter much better, but I didn't know the boy, but I got a chance to meet them and chat with them, and we spent some time together, and it's been a really fun reissuance of a product.
Well, it's like the classic 90s colors, right? I look at the shoe and I think Portland, I think the airport, I think of the carpet.
Yep.
Also think of the Charlotte Hornets from the 90s because of the purple there. There's some colorways in there, but I think it's just so classically 90s. When you look at that, it immediately goes back. And I think the 90s is very much still in vogue, right? Like the styles and trends. So it makes complete sense to try to reissue with that. What has the response been from customers, even folks in the company, as you guys have reissued this?
Well, it was a very narrow relaunch.
Yeah.
I think we made 1,983 pair. And this was really a celebration of the boot and sold out quickly. And it was really fun. But we didn't offer it to very many retailers. So we think there's an opportunity for us over time to have a more commercial launch.
Well, it's smart because it's kind of a test launch too. This is a question of like, when you do reissues, some people do it way too big in inventory stacks, and that's not what you want, right? You don't want to kill it. There's nothing worse than listening to a hit song 80 times on the radio in one day, and then the next day being like, I'm done with this song, right? Like you don't want, you just want the right amount of saturation in the market, not anything more than that. So that makes complete sense to me.
Yeah. So there's lots of people in the company that are wearing the boot. I see it, especially at the today where it's been raining like crazy in Portland. So people are wearing them.
Well, let me ask you this, Tim. When you reissue something, when you're taking something out of the archives, how much, pardon the pun, how much tinkering are you doing with a new design, or is it totally the same? I mean, are the same material suppliers involved? Like, what's that process behind the curtain when you reissue something after so many years?
Yeah, well, the original Bugaboot, we made it obviously over several years. The original one could have fit better because they were using a running shoe last. So we did some slight modifications there. The outsole material was a little bit less grippy than it should have been. So, we made the typical investments in modernizing it, but no one outside the business would really notice it. It's more the nuances of the particular product.
Yeah. Well, the shoe dogs know. The shoe dogs know.
Yep.
Our loyal listeners would know. So that's very interesting to hear you talk about the last and that. Or generally, as you kind of look at where you are with footwear today from where you came from, like, how do you feel about the footwear business going forward? Like, how are you guys positioning yourselves to continue to take advantage of the products, the great products that you guys are making?
Well, as you said, the apparel business and the footwear business are different. And I've said for years that footwear should be the biggest product category of the company. It's today about 20% of the total between the two brands, Columbia and Sorel. So we can be better. But, sometimes we approach the product offerings in too much of an apparel approach. So we've been criticized for that, and rightly so. And so we're working on that and making sure that we've got the right people and products to really be a high quality, big footwear business.
Well, I love the Sorel story, Tim, for several reasons. One, knowing the history before you purchase it of like a men's Canadian boot company. You all come in, you purchase it, you flip the script, it becomes an iconic, fashion-forward women's brand. And I was with Corey Long at the showroom in New York just a couple of weeks ago during Market Week, and he was showing me the men's product. So I had to run out and buy a pair because the men's product, it's beautiful product, and it's, to me, you're diving back into the men's side in the Sorel business. So walk us through kind of your thinking just on Sorel, because it seems like there's a lot of opportunity there as well.
Well, there are a number of, but not a vast number of iconic shoes in the footwear business. You think about the Desert Boot and the Sperry Topsider, and there's a few of them. Nike has a number of them, and the Sorel Caribou is one, and that's where we hope that we can get some real traction, making that the aura of the Caribou much broader, and give us some opportunity to do it to be a year-round, multi-gender product line. And so we were very successful making an expansion of the women's footwear product, and now we think there's just at least as big an opportunity in the men's side to expand more beyond winter.
Well, that'll be interesting to see what you guys can come up with. What I watch some of your advertisements. I'm always intrigued at how much fun you guys have. And I'm wondering from your leadership style, one in particular, one recent one that I saw was about the flat earth video that you did, where you basically like, if you can prove that the earth is actually flat, then we'll give you the whole company. And you walk around the company and you're like, you can have this machine, you can have you grab somebody's lunch and the person came and grabbed it from you, or like, that's actually marked. So it's just like very comical. Like, and I think sometimes, we get people who are very serious about business, and you should be, but it seems like you have a lot of fun, and it seems like you really engage with your employees. Like, who they are. Maybe just share some of your, how you engage with the company, and like how you keep it fresh and fun in that way. Because I think some people could never do that. They could never be that carefree or just kind of fun with these topics that you talk about.
Well, it's it really starts off with the company's founding, if you will, after my dad died, and my mom and I were here running the business. From the year my dad died, the company did $1 million, and the year after, it did $500,000. And so we were thrust into the business without really any experience. And but as we learned the business, we just were struck how, first of all, how a woman running a business, because I was 21 years old when my dad died. So my mom ran the business, and a woman running a business at that time in the early 70s was so unusual. And so we hired an agency to help us, and they recognized how different that was. And so the initial ads that we did early on in the 80s and the 90s were all about my mom torturing me as a test dummy for the company's products. So, over time, we sort of lost the opportunity, the ability to poke fun at ourselves, but we really realized that the key for our business, and we talk about this all the time, nobody needs another brand of footwear or apparel. There are plenty and really good ones. So how are we different? And it has to start with the character and the personality of the products and the brand. And that's where we said, let's go back to those early days where we could really be a different company. So the people we compete with, which are great companies, but they're all incredibly serious about their product. They're made for, walking on frozen glaciers, and our products can do all that stuff as well. And they're extremely well designed for that purpose. But when you start talking about being on a glacier, you're just talking to the same way everybody talks about their products. So that's why we want to really focus on being different and how we test the products. I don't know if you've seen we have a number of products that we're testing on. We strapped a guy, which used to be me, and we strapped a guy to the front of a snowplow and drove him around the Alps and tested the product.
Now, does he get time and a half for that?
Yeah, I'm hoping so.
No way. No. That's he signed up for it, and that's what he gets. We put there's another ad that we've done which we talk about. Our products can keep you warm in a snowball fight, but what about inside a snowball? And then we put a girl in a snowball and ran her down the hill. And anyway, so we're trying to be different from the rest of our competitors and get noticed. And then the flat earth thing is really an opportunity for us to do what we call activations, which are unusual connections with the outdoors that we think most companies can't do. We can do it, and others can't, and that makes us different. And that's how we're approaching what we do.
Well, clearly, no one's proven the Earth is flat. No one's taken the company.
Yeah, you're still sitting in that sea right there, Tim. So
believe me, we have gotten plenty of entries.
Well, so Tim, I got to ask you. Back in the day when you were filming these torture videos, otherwise known as brilliant commercials, how long were the shooting days, or how many days? Like, how many takes does it take to torture you? Like, walk us through that.
Oh, it sort of depended. I mean, we did one we did a series of commercials, which started with me coming out of a cement mixer to market a pair of pants. And then that was one whole day. And then the next day we did a shoot in the morning, and then we took a helicopter up to the top of a mountain. These were shot in Vancouver, BC. And then so those things would take 2-3 days. We did a shoot on Slave Lake, Alberta, which is a cold place. And that was at least 3 days. And one of the commercials, which didn't get a lot of airtime, correctly so, was I had a Bugaboot on one foot and a flip flop on the other, and it was to demonstrate how cold you could get, which was cold. So, but it took a long time. And this flat Earth commercial just took a few hours.
That's not bad. You sped things up. Well, that's good. Yep. Well, I would be remiss if we didn't bring up the T word as we kind of move towards a different part of the discussion. I'm not looking to buzzkill. Still love talking about product. But you and I shared a stage. You were gracious enough to speak at our exec summit in 2019, I believe it was, in Washington. A lot has happened from 2019 to 2026 as it relates to trade policy. Your activism and your voice has been so critically important during what we've been facing. How has the trade, tariff, and President Trump dynamic impacted the business, and what are you feeling as you head into 2026?
Well, it's interesting. So we have business all over the globe. About 40% of our business is outside the U.S., and every country that we work in has its own nuances as it relates to preferential trading partners, protectionism, etc. So we've become very adept at sourcing in areas of the world where there was an advantage to the company from a price perspective or a construction perspective. But that stuff is really not applicable in today's environment in the U.S. So we're doing what we can to try and influence the legislation, but we have somebody in the White House which is not a normal approach to global trade. Yeah. So we have to just focus on doing whatever we can to have our products be competitive elsewhere in the world, and then we'll do what we can here. But it's very impactful and difficult.
Well, I will say I've seen a handout that your team put together with some key executives posing in great Columbia Sportswear Company gear and talking about the tariff impact. And you guys have put your money where your mouth is. To have Peter Bragdon and Jeff Tews on a handout as we walk around the hill those are the type of tools, the creative thinking that you all have, even in the policy space, which is often very uncreative. You guys have brought that, so we really do appreciate it.
Well, if there's one good thing that came from the tariffs, it's everybody understands about tariffs now. Before, people, they were baffled. But now they all know it's a tax, and it's intended to be a tax, and you're paying a tax, and so,
Well, it is slowly starting to feed out into the market, right? Like, we were expecting it to happen a lot quicker in terms of price hikes, but obviously a lot of people brought in some goods in advance and stocked up warehouses, and we have a little bit of a choppy economy, so you can't really rise prices too much. People don't have that much disposable income compared to in the past, and so 2026, though, is going to be very interesting in terms of where we land with policy with the Supreme Court and with trade and tariffs and things like that. But like, putting tariffs aside and prices and costs, how are you feeling about 26 in terms of business? Like you said that you want to grow your footwear business. Is 2026 going to be better than 2025?
Well, I certainly hope so. Our plan is for it to be so. Although the first, part of the year these are the first time tariff prices will be visible to consumers. Yeah, we expect that there'll be some reluctance to pay higher prices. So the promotional activity may be enhanced.
Yeah. Well, the other question I have for you too, Tim, is it's interesting to talk to you because you'll talk about lasts, you'll talk about your strategy. Like, when you run your corporation, like, how involved are you in the day to day? And then how are you more strategic? Are you more trying to like craft what's happening? Are you more like hands on with your teams? Like, how do you see your leadership style and how do you execute?
Well, obviously the long-term future of the businesses has to be laid out in an organized manner. But that doesn't stop me from coming up with a stupid idea and asking them to make it. They're always thrilled when I show up at somebody's desk and say, "Hey, what do you think about this thing?" You know, they're sort of obligated to listen to me anyway.
Well, it's a family business, Tim. I mean, it boils down to the legacy of your iconic. I mean, she was and is such an icon. Your iconic mother and yourself. Like this is a family business that has grown into a multi-billion-dollar global business, right? And so you have a lot of stakeholders, but the heart and soul where this all began, those years where you had $1 million sale and $500,000 in sales, and then onward and upward from there. That starts with you. So it seems like you continue to carry on the heart and soul of your family in such an iconic business. And we know a lot of your employees. We work with a lot of your associates, and they are just top-notch people, both professionally and personally. So that starts at the top, and you've set that example for many years now.
Now, would we put them on a brochure? Probably not, but that's a bold move on your part, Tim. Maybe you're more visionary than us. I'm just saying.
Well, you know, I have a SAG card, but some of those guys don't, so we have to be real cautious.
Tim, we really appreciate your time today. And we'll be interested to see like what you guys do next with the Bugaboot, like how you do these re-releases as you go back to your catalogs and re-release. And then also really interested to see 26 unfold as you guys continue to plow into footwear more and more. And we're cheering you on and look forward to seeing what you guys can come up with.
Well, great. There'll be more good stuff coming. And you'll also see more interesting stuff along the lines of the Flat Earth Challenge.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
Okay.
Get ready.
We are.
Buckled up.
Yeah, we'll lace up and get ready to go.
Okay.
I circle the globe, but I'm a little afraid of these applications where you already got some people sending some stuff in. So that's
like
I don't know what that means, but I did work in Congress for 9 years, and we got some interesting mail, so I can imagine.
Yeah, we're right there. Right there.
Now, do you go through those yourself? Like,
who's your flat Earth person?
Yeah, we actually have a series of judges, but I get entrance. You know, so
wow.
I got a marriage proposal too out of the deal. So,
whoa, that's like a whole different episode.
Wow. I mean, were they flat Earth or were they round Earth? Did it not matter?
My wife told me not to answer. So,
oh, well,
good advice.
That's good that you went to your wife and asked. The better halves always know best, right?
And she's not a flat earther, so you're you're good.
That's right.
All right, Tim. Well, thank you so much for your time today. We really appreciate you talking to us about the Bugaboot, about what was happening with Columbia Sportswear Company, and what you guys are working on. And again, I'll reiterate what Matt was saying, but we really appreciate you guys putting your foot forward on the tariff issue. There's a lot of companies who are a little bit tentative, and we understand that, but we do need leaders out there who are willing to speak the truth, whether it's on Truth Social or just in general, just truth out there. So we appreciate you stepping up to the fore and doing that, and your great team. Folks, this has been another great episode. shoeandshow.com is the website where you can see all our great list of all the episodes we've had. New episode comes out every single week. We appreciate you listening. 2026 is going to be a great year for this podcast. We're going to have on a lot of new voices, a lot of new ideas, and hopefully some folks from outside the industry as well, trying to bring up some new perspective. Because I think 2026 is it's scratching the surface of this kind of continued change we see in our society and our economy, et cetera. And so we want to kind of bring in some perspectives of that as well about what might be coming so that companies can best prepare. But as we look forward to the future, we hope your year is off to a great start. And next Monday, new episode. We hope you'll join us then. Until next time, Shoe In is out.
Shoe In has been brought to you by the FDRA, the Footwear Industries Association focused on retail, trade, politics, and fashion, helping create and enhance conversations on all things footwear. For information about FDRA, visit fdra.org.